All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case cross-platform, as always. So we need to make sure everything is lined up here. Let's make sure all of our tabs are open. Everything is fully accessible. Yes, indeed. We have to check our tabs. Now we'll reload Rumble. We already have a super chat. I'll get to that in a second. Make sure that we're actually live. Come on, load the stream. You know you want to. I don't want to hear myself, so I've got my volume off, of course. Others apparently do, so I'll make sure that that's actually happening. We do have Rumble rants coming in, so I'm assuming that we are live. It's just a matter of reloading it on Rumble. Works pretty well. There was one or two times there that it didn't work so well. By the way, 97,000 subscribers on Rumble, probably in the next 48 hours. So we're getting up towards the 100K mark. And I did query, actually, the people at Rumble. Apparently, there are active plans to eventually have a sort of award. So I'll have something else behind me as well. I've got the YouTube play button. I've got the BitChute award. Now we'll have one from Rumble. Odyssey should think about getting that. I've got a certificate from them and got a USB with a bunch of LBC on it. But they need to have something as well. I want to hang it in the background because, you know, everyone wants a little bit of a trophy wall. We are live on Rumble. Not a banned account. Today's episode is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Yeah, I've seen a lot of spam about that from content creators. I don't understand that myself. I don't understand taking sponsorships for the most part. It's like, yeah, I mean, you can make money, but you know, you might sell your soul in the process. Then all of a sudden you get reliant upon that revenue. And then the company decides, hey, one of the videos you just put out, we don't really like it. It's too edgy. It's not edgy enough. It depends. And there's something, there's problematic is what I would call it. This is the reason I do not take any ad revenue. I think I did a rough calculation and figured that I could have made about $500,000 off of ad revenue had I been taking it all of those years. I'm glad that I didn't, because then I didn't become reliant upon that, forced me to work harder and make more fucking books. So I feel pretty good about my decision. Nice fresh pot, says 8 Drunken Gods. Yes, they are nice and clean. I had the plants out a few days ago and watered them down. I've got one of them out there right now, the little bonsai actually that Liz got me because it lost a couple of leaves. And it seems to do that this time of year, and I'm not exactly sure why. But I don't want it to completely die back or something like that. It was puffing out and doing fairly well. Hello there. Raid sponsors Dankula. I would say they are a non-woke company. I've gotten offers like you wouldn't believe from corporations trying to sponsor me. I generally shut it down and say I'm not interested. There are a couple that I've been kind of interested in throughout time. If someone wants to send me like a product or something and then I just talk about it, that's one thing. But I don't really want a continuing income from any site or anything that I use, just as a matter of self-interest. HB, hey Sticks, what is your favorite cryptid? I would say the Champ Monster in Lake Champlain. One of the more plausible cryptids, by the way. And I don't say that just because I've actually been to Lake Champlain. It's large enough to potentially support some sort of large creature. My understanding of the situation is probably a sea sturgeon or a hybrid thereof. I don't think that there's a plesiosaur in Lake Champlain. Could be wrong. You know, maybe it evolved over tens of millions of years. I'm rather skeptical of it being megafauna. I'm rather skeptical of it being a freshwater whale as well. There's something in there, but you got to understand, and I made a video on this years ago, if tourists come and they're used to their duck pond and they're used to fish being this big, they go to the grocery store and they see little fish fillets, they're a foot long or something maybe. And then they go to Lake Champlain and they're on a rowboat having a good day out and they see a sturgeon that's 8 feet long. They think it's a sea monster. So Clyde 6 Killer on Rumble. My most terrifying cryptid is Lori Lightfoot. Yeah. Gollum actually exists. Michelle Kiersnowski. Hello, Sticks. I'm moving into my new house next week. Any recommendation of what to put in my garden? I am located in South Carolina. Clank. You're in the perfect climate. You can grow basically anything depending on when you plant it. Grow some collard greens and then learn how to cook them. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Lots of cruciferous vegetables. Yes, I know. Not good for the kidneys. Too much of the yin sign or something like that. I think that they're delicious myself. Nobody ever died from eating collard greens unless they had a real problem to begin with. Now, we're going to start out today talking about Elon Musk and the Twitter attacks on him. Twitter just went into ludicrous mode in its legal war against Elon Musk. When Twitter sued Elon Musk, by the way, links in the description, you can follow along. Last month in Delaware Chancery Court, the 62-page poop emoji-laden suit brought up Musk's many requests for data that the company claimed were irrelevant, except as a pretext for wrongfully blowing up the $44 billion deal. Musk initiated this takeover in April, but has since been trying to get out of it, claiming there are more spam bots than the company lets on in its public filings, which makes it less valuable than the price he agreed to pay for it. Data about tweets, users, likes, retweets, and other digital interactions have been central to the Musk camp strategy that they can get out of this either by finding something wrong with how Twitter is run or by pushing its board into an untenable position in which it is forced to breach a legal agreement. Yes, they've been subpoenaing a bunch of people, David Sachs, and he responded with a Mad Magazine cover, which was basically, fuck you. The news that I am being subpoenaed by Twitter's lawyers reminded me of this issue of Mad Magazine. I don't know why. And there are a million other things. Chancery Daily, lots and lots to dig through in these subpoenas. Some obvious, some random, some weird, some boring. Mostly boring. I mean, it is in lawyer speak, so the average person is not going to get much out of it. You want to go through 50 pages of dense legalese to find the 2 sentences that are actually funny? You've got more patience than me, my friend. But yeah, they've been subpoenaing people close to Elon Musk. They're playing hardball. And again, my position remains the same. My hope is that Elon Musk ends up running Twitter. He may have to take a loss in order to do that. My thought is that probably this whole thing is to attain a settlement. I think he still wants Twitter. I don't think he wants to pay $44 billion for Twitter. And considering that their stock has collapsed in the wake of him having second thoughts, and really was before that anyway, he might get a discount. He might be able to get it for $40 billion. He might be able to get it for $35 billion. Well, if you can save billions of dollars, nobody can say that Elon Musk doesn't have money sense. Why not? Why not at least try it? The cost of launching this particular legal position in which he's trying to pull out, supposedly, is peanuts to him. It's in the tens of millions of dollars range. Twitter, by the way, having problems probably at some point even paying for the legal fees because they are effectively close to bankrupt. He can outlast them. He can potentially pay less for Twitter and save a shit ton of money. Why the hell wouldn't he? There's no reason why he wouldn't. I think this was his plan all along, and I think that he would be pleased to own Twitter. I think he's not hugely cut up if he ends up not owning Twitter, because you've got to understand, he owns 10% of Twitter anyway. If he dumps his stock, if the judge says, well, Musk doesn't have to obtain Twitter, your contract is null and void, he can punish them by dumping his stock, and it means nothing to him as far as the amount of money. It's a few $1 billion in basically a punitive action, and he can crush them. Not a banned account. What year or month will the U.S. dollar collapse? I'm not looking forward to a U.S. dollar collapse, and I'll tell you why. The U.S. dollar is backed by aircraft carriers and by a diverse economy. The one advantage that the United States has that many smaller countries don't is that it's not reliant on any single export. It has dozens and dozens of major economic capabilities. The same is true of China. China would have collapsed already if it didn't have a diversified economy. Miku Forex bot, hurrah! One of the Washington rhinos will be ousted. MAGA. We're not sure that Butler will be ousted. I will be talking about that, but it looks like she's not likely to actually be nominated. Skycloud Rain. Alex Jones ordered to pay $4.5 million and $45 million to a specific parent of Sandy Hook. Opinion on the trial. So now free speech is $50 million speech. Yes, it is very problematic. We'll be covering that as well. I didn't put that in on the tweet that I made about the live stream, but I did add it actually thereafter. We'll be talking about Alex Jones. So yes, Twitter is gunning for Elon Musk. There is no lose here, by the way, for users of Twitter. Either the person running it probably manages it better, that's a win, or the site collapses. Where are people going to go? There'll be a left-wing version, I'm sure, but everyone else will be using like Gab or Getter or Parler or something. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens. They're effectively, they want him to obtain the site so much they're willing to sue him to force him to do so after several months of trying to sue him to keep him from owning the site. Their back is against the wall. Yeah. Zach the Celtics guy. I am a gay man and still got no monkeypox. I know, you're all shocked. I'm not. The average person is never going to get monkeypox at all. It's not really a medical emergency. It'd be shocking to people that are on the far right of politics, maybe. Now we're going to talk about Taiwan, because I think this is actually the major story. The Elon Musk one, I think, gets more attention because it's Elon Musk. I've got two links here, actually, with regards to Pelosi and her visit to Taiwan and how ill-advised it was. China suspends cooperation with the U.S. on a range of issues, sanctions Pelosi over Taiwan trip. I don't care if they sanction Pelosi. Pelosi doesn't care either. China's foreign ministry announced new countermeasures against Washington on Friday, including the suspension of climate talks. Oh, that's rather interesting. You mean that you want to build more coal-fired plants as the West continues to commit energy suicide and tries to dismantle its capabilities of energy usage. In response to Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, hours after it announced sanctions against the U.S. House Speaker. Nobody cares. She's already got hers. She's worth over $100 million. You think that she gives a fucking shit? She doesn't care. She already got the money out of China that she needed. The measures include the cancellation of future phone calls and meetings between Chinese and U.S. defense leaders, which is basically a big ask. It'll be reestablished over the coming months. It's basically, hey, we're pissed off at you. Give us something in return so that we'll talk to you. This happens over and over in diplomacy. Because our leaders are weak. They're spineless. They're spineless and they're greedy. And U.S. defense leaders for which future dates had not been announced, and the cancellation of annual naval meetings under the China-U.S. military maritime consultation mechanism. Why should our navies even be coordinating? They should be competing with one another, supposedly, if we're hostile states. It's sort of like Dr. Strangelove. I made an exclusive, actually, this morning on the topic that General Ripper actually had a point. Our politicians keep namby-pambing with the commies and using it as a way to grind down their own populations. The Chinese do this. The U.S. government does this. At the end of the day, it's all horseshit, effectively. China also suspended cooperation on the repatriation of illegal immigrants, legal assistance on criminal matters, and the combat of transnational crimes, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying said in a briefing Friday. It suspended its anti-drug cooperation with the U.S. This is something Scott Adams has talked a lot about with regards to fentanyl, which is mainly made in China and labs there, which has already been strained in recent years. The U.S. has blamed China for failing to stop synthetic opioids, fentanyl, from reaching the U.S. as both Beijing and Washington disagree on how to counteract the problem. Well, how to counteract it is just, shutting off trade to and from China. But you haven't tried to do that because you enjoy their money. Ultimately, Nancy Pelosi is not really going to hardline the Chinese. She's gotten a lot of money from them. She's beholden to them in part. And then we have a follow-up, and this is much more concerning. And this is another part to the disaster that was the Pelosi visit to Taiwan. It was ill-advised. If you're going to send anyone to Taiwan, fucking send the president. Force Biden to get up out of bed an hour early. Send him to Taiwan so that it actually means something. Nobody cares about where Nancy Pelosi goes. PM breaking news. Breaking! Taiwanese official leading missile development found dead in hotel room in Taipei via CNA. That's rather interesting now, isn't it? There was no assassination. Nobody knows anything. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly normal for that to happen. Sort of like that Iranian scientist, I think, that was splattered that one time many, many years ago in Tehran. And it was totally normal. It's totally normal for a missile to come out of the sky randomly and happen to hit his limo. Abraham Lincoln. Why do so many commenters on BitChute hate you? There's a lot of hate on the BitChute comment areas because a lot of the people that have gone there have been like furthest right. And so they see somebody like me who's sane, who has, sensible opinions, number one, and who is actually accurate and gives suggestions on how to make things better. They see us as cucks because they do not, they see demographic displacement, but they don't want to have kids. They think that their way of life is hazarded, but they don't want to do anything to self-improve in order to maintain that way of life because they're lazy ass fuckers. That's basically what it boils down to. That's what I would have to say to many of my critics cross-platform. You're lazy and pathetic, and you're not doing anything to improve your life. You want to sit on the couch and shitpost all day, and you think that'll change the world. Then somebody like myself that actually attempts to grow his own vegetables or something like that, we're the problem. Fuck yourself. Sky Cloud Rain, even if Alex said mean things, he should be allowed to. This is not about Alex. This is so people, Rogan, self-censor. So big fish don't get out of line. I will be covering that. Apache Senpai. Morning, Sticks. Did you see the left coming for Kavanaugh again? Because the FBI didn't take every tip 100% serious. Yeah, they can bleat like the sheep that they are until the cows come home. It won't mean anything. Established Lord Fred of Dankytown. Washington video was missing an important name. Heidi St. John. She is another MAGA candidate that should have dropped out, but is now splitting the vote and hoarding 15 points as Joe and Jamie are tied at 23. In the end, I think that Herrera will probably lose. I think that Kent will actually manage to get it. The fact that Kent was fending off another MAGA candidate and still managed to potentially knock her off is, by the way, very telling. If anything, it becomes more impressive now, doesn't it? And Crafty Huragok. Sticks, do you think when talking to a leftist, and if reason fails in a conversation, do you think accelerationism is acceptable? Part 1 of 2. I am not an accelerationist. I think that's a terrible idea, just to be clear. So yeah, there was Taiwan. Also, we're going to talk about Chris Cuomo. This is a funny one. This is more on the entertaining side of our infotainment news specials here, our roundups. Chris Cuomo's comeback tour. Elite lapdogs are always welcome. Cuomo's return after being exposed as a propagandist shows how corporate media types aren't held accountable. Who is this from? Who wrote this article? It's from Salon. Salon is cannibalizing their own. Why don't you just admit you didn't have the money to get Chris Cuomo to work for you? And so instead of working for Salon, because, he's a white male, so he probably wouldn't be welcome there, he decided to work for somebody else. The return of Chris Cuomo to television is the latest reminder that there is little accountability to speak of in corporate news media. You're Salon. You are a corporation, just to be clear. Chris was ousted from CNN in late 2021 amidst an ethics investigation that claimed he utilized his position at the cable news juggernaut to advise his brother, it's not an allegation, it's an objective truth, then New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who was facing a series of sexual misconduct allegations. Nobody cares about age-old allegations of sexual misconduct. The left is not going to crucify someone for that. You have to have photographic evidence like with Franken before they give a damn. They only care if it's somebody on the right. The reason why he was ousted, I think, was more to protect the Cuomo family against allegations with regards to Andrew Cuomo killing 15,000 elderly people, lying about the total, and having effectively done it himself through his stupid actions. Chris used his professional connections to identify what reporters knew about the allegations and then use that information to consult Andrew on how to respond. All while hosting Andrew on his daily CNN program. And it goes on down through this and then basically plows him under and throws him under the bus. But yeah, Chris Cuomo will be back on TV fairly soon. And that's rather unfortunate. Yeah, Alex Jones gets sued for $45 million. Chris Cuomo faces a temporary suspension from TV, basically. And we'll be talking about that. 87 Sparky. Wow, I didn't even get notifications. Many such cases. A Crafty Huragok, part 2 of 2. Like food, energy shortages, and luxury ideals that will disappear if the leftists get their way. No, I don't think that accelerationism is going to affect that in a positive manner. Generiella. God help me, but Hochul makes me miss Cuomo. What do you think about our chances in November? Thanks, Sticks. Hochul will win, in my opinion, which is unfortunate. I would agree with you, but likely to happen. There's no two ways around it. This is why we need to expand the U.S. Constitution. This is why we need to overhaul judiciary power, rein in the socialists. ES 1776, haven't gotten a notification for lives in a month. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Although there are almost 3,000 people watching cross-platform already. Pretty good, pretty good. I fight with one arm tied behind my back and still end up a heavyweight, so it works for me. As long as people see the show, as long as it's there for people to see, it's okay. DC0118, if Pelosi had backed out at the last minute, wouldn't that have been as diplomatically stupid as it would be bowing to Chinese pressure? Yes, it would have, but she never should have gone to East Asia in the first place. There never should have been a suggestion of her going to Taiwan. All you've done is give the Chinese government their reason, a cause, to do their war games, to do the diplomatic shut-off thing. You've handed them on a silver platter a victory, effectively. And I talked about this morning. Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan came with the United States government at the same time. She's in the air. She's off in East Asia. At the same time, during a presser, the U.S. government maintains its position that we don't even recognize Taiwan as a sovereign entity. Well, then how the hell are you backing Taiwan? Recognize them as the lords and regents of one China. Or recognize their sovereignty. Say Taiwan is not part of China. It is its own country, as they claim to be. Both of these positions are perfectly tenable. Up until the middle of the 1970s, we recognized Taipei as the government, the legitimate overlords of all of China. We decided to abandon that in order to draw China into a worldwide trade network in hopes of eliminating communism by saying, look, we get a lot more money, you'll get investment, we'll influence you. Instead, the influence went in reverse. It's sort of like a heroin junkie. Heroin junkie draws out a bunch of their blood to make sure that they get all the heroin into their system, thus spreading AIDS in many cases, by the way. We got AIDS from China, effectively. We got economic aids from them by putting tainted communistic blood into our system and getting high at the same time. Only it's not heroin anymore, it's fentanyl. 87 Sparky, do you think World War I and World War II was one of the results of globalism? World War I, kind of. That wasn't really related to trade and things like that. That was more just related to alliances. Regrettable. But foreseeable. World War II, to an extent, because, of course, you have the Weimar era, and a lot of the problems there are prefaced on the Treaty of Versailles, the punitive damage to the German people as the result of being punished for World War I. And it provided a good breeding ground for communists and Nazis and people like that, people that were outside of the lamestream. I wouldn't really chalk it up to globalism, though. Globalism had only been really optioned in the 1920s with the League of Nations sort of thing in the early 20th century. And it got shelved. Nobody really wanted to take part in it. It was never ratified. I would say globalism is really more post-Cold War than anything else. It's much more recent and much more deadly. It'd be better to be back in the Cold War than under globalism. Skycloud Rain, BitChute peeps are clowns, just like people who say we will fight in a revolution, wanting things to light off because they are mad at the Second Amendment infringements, yet refuse to get a part of the legal process. Yeah, it's like these people, they want somebody else to go and kill. They're happy when that happens. I don't see them pulling the trigger. That's because they're a bunch of fucking pussies. It's just like they say, well, the white race is going to disappear. Demographics are destiny. And most of them don't have any children. Okay, you're really convincing me, dude. Obviously, you are a warrior for your causes. Not a banned account. How do you volunteer for permanent possession? I don't know. Never been possessed by a demon. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. Aquafan, currently on YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. Thinking about quitting BitChute. Can't handle a 2 GB file limit. Videos are HD on YouTube and Rumble, but potato on BitChute. I believe that is slated to change. There will be, in my opinion, fairly large news regarding BitChute in the future. There are issues on the platform. There are on every other platform as well. I choose to use them all. I'm not quitting BitChute. Skycloud Rain, they are keyboard losers. They talk all this crap but won't get involved politically to prevent a disaster like a civil war. It's madness. I think they want a civil war because they played too many video games and they think they'll be scavenging the wasteland after the nukes fall and it'll be just like Fallout. Or they're going to have their TradCon that they've, knocked over the head and dragged into their hovel, and they're going to be living in Skyrim or something like that. Really rather sad how many people have been fooled by this horseshit. You can already improve your life. Learn a new fucking skill. Stop being a fucking lazy moron. Ryan McDonald, USA. The only obligation I know of is USA treaty with Japan to protect them if attacked. Do nations ever just not uphold their historical treaties? Yeah, we should just establish a martial society in Taiwan. No more problem. The Chinese aren't going to invade if there's 10 million more guns facing them. They don't have the naval capability to overrun them with troops if everyone has a gun. They don't have the capability. They don't have the manpower. Shit, even China doesn't. Simple Logic 90. My state just banned abortion outright except for rape, incest, and then the safety of the mother. I hope this will keep libs out of my state. Well, I mean, I would oppose that. I think that it should be legal on demand up through the first trimester myself. But, yeah, I guess silver lining. And nobody. G'day, Sticks. First super chat. Will we see a Chinese invasion of Taiwan in the near future? No, what we're seeing right now is China making a big ask. They're suspending diplomatic cooperation and warmongering, but they don't get called warmongers for it because of Pelosi's visit, which was the point. And they get to extract tribute from the Western countries as the result. Jim Rockwell, thoughts on King Cobra JFS? Listen to Sector Gaza. I have no clue what that refers to. Anyway, now we've got the next news. Sinema signs on to Democrats' climate and tax bill. Yes, indeed. Kirsten Sinema, as predicted by literally everyone who wasn't high on Chinese fentanyl at the time, has sold the nation downriver, but she did make sure to negotiate one really big change to the Democrats' IRS expansion and pro-tax bill, which is that they are not going to tax the billionaires. The business tax loophole dropped. So Sinema has delivered for her donor class buddies. You're still going to get fucked because the IRS doubles in size. It's still going to spend hundreds of billions of your taxpayer dollars on Solyndra 2.0, Shovel Ready 2.0, wasting it, making more inflation. Thankfully, though, for the Democrats, the inflation will not show up until after midterms because we're too close to midterms for it to show up in the next few months. It'll show up around next spring or summer. Good for her. You helped your donor class buddies. How wonderful. And this was predictable. I mean, she was clearly going to vote for it. She kept her silence for a while, and that's apparently because she wanted to ingratiate herself to the donor class. She is a Democrat after all, so most of her money comes from the super rich. It doesn't come from random people in Arizona. She has some support because she's more cerebral than most Democrats are, but really it's broken clock mode. It's the same with Manchin. Manchin pioneered this bill with Schumer. It parses out a couple of the pieces of the original Build Back bullshit deal, makes it a little bit less expensive, and then he waits. He carefully designed it to wait until close enough to the midterms so that the inflation would not show up before that happened. Because if the inflation from spending, $740 billion, if you add that to the economy, to the overheated economy, which is already hyperinflating, before midterms, and it shows up and it goes into the double-digit range, that's it. The Democrats not only get crushed, they get double crushed. And Manchin knew this, and he knows full well what he's doing. Strategically, genius. As far as for the United States, dire. This bill, unfortunately, will pass, which is regrettable because it doesn't deserve to. It will be rammed through the reconciliation process and used as a selling point by the Democrats, who are hoping that the liberal voters will not understand exactly the ramifications of adding nearly $1 trillion in new excessive spending, most of which has nothing to do with anything that's going to benefit anyone, at least for decades to come. Even the bill itself doesn't express itself that way. They're too stupid to realize that it's not really a victory. Not a victory for the middle class, not a victory for the average American. It's only a victory for the Democrats in the partisan sense. It's unfortunate. Some people will be taken in by it. And the Democrats are closing the gap in the congressional generic ballot for a reason. Now they have something to campaign on. And people are too fucking stupid to realize that the damage will show up after midterms, which was the entire Manchin point. So Sinema has sold the nation downriver. She knows what she's doing too. She'll be reelected probably on the strength of her sheltering the billionaires who are required at the very least to even make the bill close to solvent. Now that loophole provision is gone, it's good for small businesses, but at the same time, it means that your bill is hundreds of billions of dollars short in the revenue that it needs. You're going to have to print that money, making even more inflation. But don't worry, it won't show up until the middle of next year. So it doesn't affect the midterms now, does it? It's the whole fucking point. Aquafan, glad to hear. BitChute was my first alt tech. I would love to not have to leave. 2 gigabyte file limit was fairly new. I hope it goes away so I can stay. You can break up the videos in the meantime, but yes, my understanding is that big things are ahead with BitChute and with other new tech sites as well. Andrus Sobel, what was your opinion of dynamic pricing for the Springsteen concert? I don't know anything about that, but leave it to Bruce Springsteen to meddle with the concept of just buy a fucking ticket. Jim Morrison, General Buck Turgidson, played by George C. Scott. Have you seen him as Patton from 1970? Yes, of course. I think everyone has. The Treaty of Versailles was the peace to end all peace. Yeah, sometimes peace is worse than war. That's the whole point. Dennis Sticks, you okay with forced open borders for refugees? So then China should just flood the West with refugees, about 700 million, since they are actual refugees leaving an oppressive regime. Well, it'd be impossible. First, they have to get permission to leave China. I am fine with legitimate refugees. Yes, to be clear, if somebody is escaping a war zone, it's unfortunate. What I have said as a caveat to this, and you'll remember this, I get panned on Rational Wiki and other sites for this, is that the Western countries should not bomb them in the first place, causing the refugees to exist. Let's look at Syria. You have untold hundreds of thousands, or I think several million Syrian refugees in the US and Canada and Western Europe, etc. But these countries participated in ruining their country. You created the problem. The taxpayers never gave this the nod. Reasonable people, soldiers didn't vote. Hey, you know, we want to go soldiering in Syria. Let's drone some targets. Let's arm the FSA. Let's arm terrorists who kill people for Islamofascism. That was never done. The governments armed them and caused the problem. What I would say is that all the McMansion dwellers should be the first ones to take the refugees. Confiscate the mansions from people like Klaus Schwab who cause all these wars and put the refugees there. That'd be nice. Rauco1228, do you think the Dems will try to pull a reverse honk honk in 2024 for Trump and turn around and say he cheated, thus finding all the honk for Trump and say he has to step down because he cheated? It's an interesting theory. I don't think that they'll go that far, though. I think the honking will be in the other direction. Over on Rumble, total domination. Sticks. Jamie Herrera Butler is pronounced Butler. The E is silent. I'll put my OCD away now. My apologies. It takes me a while to read those chats because Rumble still has not fixed their chat system. So if anyone new puts in a chat, a Rumble rant, while you're attempting to look at your super chat, it goes all the way down to the bottom. Yeah, I don't really care how it's pronounced because she's likely to lose her job in the coming days, which is good. Next one. This is from Slate. This is a Cope post by Jeremy Stahl, a notable leftist. Hear me out. Trump won't run again. The entire idea is that because of J6 and shit like that, he won't run. And if he runs, he won't get the nomination. And if he gets the nomination, he won't get the general. Now, I may be wrong here, but that's just my thought. These days, it seems no rational reporter wants to be seen once again predicting old Donnie won't be able to wriggle his way out of this jam. Those jams currently include continued unpopularity among the general electorate. Take a look at Biden's polling. Falling support in the Republican Party. False. There is no fall in support. It's remained stable. Rising potential rivals in that party. False. There is no rising rival. Again, fucking take a look at the aggregated polls, you idiot. Public hearings that exposed his extraordinary level of responsibility for the mob violence on January 6th. False. There was no personal responsibility. Fucking charge him if you think otherwise. A civil case set to go to trial next year over an allegation that Trump committed rape. He's faced a million such allegations before. He's defeated all of the charges because there's never any evidence. A civil investigation in New York that is pursuing allegations of fraudulent business practices against Trump Organization. Those have been going on for years. Nobody cares. The MAGA crowd doesn't give a fucking shit about what New York City does. And a series of state and federal criminal investigations over Trump's actions surrounding January 6th. That is redundant, by the way, with one of your former posts. This is a co-post. The idea is that Trump is being litigated against by various entities. And so he's pooping his pants. He's orange. He's fat. He's a big baby. He wears diapers. And he's retarded, basically. We have heard this fucking co-posting now since 2015. It's been the same over and over again. I love how the legacy media, Slate being part of that, by the way, loves to astroturf the concept that Trump is losing popularity. Please point me to the actually accredited poll that shows that. Please point me to the poll that shows anyone else matching up against Trump within 20 points of him. They do not exist. Trump enjoys over 50% support in virtually every single poll, no matter how packed or unpacked the field is. In a one-on-one, he crushes it. In a 1-on-5, he crushes it. In a 1-on-20,000, he fucking crushes it. It doesn't matter. And again, none of these articles point out one very important thing. I keep pointing this out, and none of them ever admit to it. If Trump runs because of his technical incumbency and his high in-party support, even if you falsely claim that it's falling, it's still well above 50%. Some states will cancel their primaries and simply allocate him the votes. Even if it's only a tiny minority of states, let's say 6 states do it. He gets all of the delegates from those states. If any of those states are proportional and otherwise would have given delegates to any other individual within a primary process, he's already won. He doesn't even have to campaign past Super Tuesday. He can campaign up until then, batter a few people in the debates, say fuck it, and then say, look, I've won. Go ahead and go about your business. I'm waging the general. Bye. I'm ignoring you. You are irrelevant. I don't think Cruz has effectively stated that he will stand down if Trump runs. DeSantis has alluded to it. Haley hasn't, but she's got 5% support maybe. Pence certainly hasn't. He's clearly not going to be nominated. Who else is there? Chris Christie? You going to nominate Chris Christie? Yeah, no, the Republican Party is being destroyed by MAGA. We're going to nominate someone of principle. We're going to nominate Chris Christie, who took up half of the beach during the lockdowns under COVID. That's going to go over real well. Oh my God. I hope that they do that. I hope that the Republicans, much as I would like Trump back, okay, I want Trump, I want MAGA, I want the tax relief, I want the sane diplomacy. I'm nostalgic for the Trump years because they were simply far better than anything that we had before in my lifetime, more or less, and certainly better than what we've had thereafter. I really genuinely like that. I want Trump to run. I want Trump to be nominated. I want Trump to be the next president. I want him to go full Grover Cleveland on their ass, if only for the goddamn humor. But if that doesn't happen, I hope with every fiber of my body that the Republicans are crazy enough to nominate somebody like Chris Christie or Mike Pence or Nikki Haley for that matter. Ted Cruz, he would wage a campaign. I don't know whether he'd win or not. I wouldn't vote for him, depending on who he was up against. DeSantis, he has definitely some positive points, but, we'll wait and see. I hope that it would be Chris Christie, though, because they'd get completely ass blasted. They win. They're scandal-ridden. They're a one-term disaster. Trump chuckles and says, I told you so for the next 4 years, and it'd be hilarious. Or they don't get elected. The Democrats run roughshod over them with Pete Buttigieg or Bernie Sanders or something. That'd be funny, too. Yeah, okay, enjoy 4 more years of suffering under Bidenomics on steroids because you decided to try to shaft Donald Trump. Dweez Droid Breeze Boys, if the cryptids are discovered, will you be there to present the Gettysburg Address? That would be interesting. Mopey Hornet, hey Sticks, I have a 3-year-old daughter. When would be a good age, in your opinion, to introduce her to religion or spirituality? Let her find that on her own. Raised with comparative religion would be that's what we're going to be doing. You want to study the spiritual, daddy's into the occult or something, you can go ahead and read this book, but I'm not going to attempt to enforce that on my daughter. Get her into the occult or anything like that, because it's not right. You have to be older in order to truly understand these things anyway. And spirituality, lack of spirituality, that's all fine. I don't believe in hell or anything like that, so it doesn't really matter. Andrew Sobel, which 3 people in history, past or present, would you like to interview? I'll just go with the past. Alexander the Great would be pretty cool. Cleopatra of Egypt would be pretty cool. And, Napoleon sounds pretty good. Napoleon was an interesting character. Ask him about oracles. Hey, did you actually use an oraculum before battle, or is that a pile of horse shit that was meant to peddle late 1800s wares on people? I'd be very interested. Lord Chuffington. I'm Lord Cuffington, master of the Chuffs. Chuff! You missed an H there. Haha. You have been trolled epically. Miku 4Xbot. Shapiro and Crowder ran polls that had DeSantis up. Irrelevant, non-scientific polls. Yes, I wonder why Ben Shapiro's audience would not want Donald Trump to be the nominee. Wink, wink. Irrelevant. If I ran a poll, I bet I'd find Trump up by 60, 70 points. Maybe I'll do that. Show me those polls. Link me on Twitter DM. Somebody link me to their polls on the subject. Did they use straw poll or something like that? I'll conduct my own, and I bet anything that Trump is up. See, it depends on the audience. Faded Zephyr. Hey, Sticks. Ghost from the Ghost Show actually bought the January 6th hearing crap and thinks that Trump tried to suspend the Constitution. Apparently, the hearings actually fooled some dumb people. I don't think Ghost is dumb. I like the dude. I've liked his show. Beercan whatever it is, .wave, I think. No, I have no problem with him. I think he's wrong if he thinks that, and I don't know. I didn't hear about that, but Michael Greco. Christopher Hitchens appeared to have awoken to the grift of the left too late in his life. Do you think if he was alive today, he would be out there sounding like you? Maybe, but I won't speak for someone who's croaked. Unlike leftoids or religious people, they try to claim that Anton LaVey converted on his deathbed and shit like that. Miku 4Xbot. Shapiro and Crowder ran polls that had DeSantis up. I did see that. I question the polling methodology. Dennis, I'm fine with actual refugees. Well, if interventions are, you need to take them in global economics, can ruin countries, so you're still on the hook for that. For example, Central America. Yeah, I mean, if it's a real refugee, I have no problem. It's some Cuban, they're escaping communism. Okay, that's fine. We also have safe third country laws. If you're escaping China, there are plenty of other countries that are closer than the United States. You're not really a refugee from war or something like that. DCCC Games put party over principle, says Emily Cherniak on Real Clear Politics. And the idea of this, and it's really true. Here's the funny part of it. The DCCC, which handles the money for the DNC, for the Democratic Party, has been dispersing literally tens of millions of dollars towards Republican candidates. Now, you might say, oh, okay, well, it's like a Mitt Romney or something, someone who's a sane moderate, a proper conservative. You know, they lose and then they don't talk about it anymore and they go off into the hinterlands or something. Somebody who doesn't really stand for conservative principles. Yeah, I'm not really for gun control, but those assault rifles bother me. Yeah, I want tax relief, but just a little bit, not too much tax relief. Don't rock the liberal boat. No, they've actually been giving money to MAGA candidates. And of course, some of these, well, most of them have been nominated. And the idea behind it is that they think that the MAGA candidates will be easier to beat. So in many cases, a lack of incumbency. And that is meaningful, by the way. If you scrap an incumbent, even a weak one, for somebody who is non-incumbent, it does slightly reduce their odds of being reelected. The problem is that what they're doing here is it's almost like the Justice Dems with AOC and Elon Omar and shit, okay? These groups, far left, they want to have people in positions of power because they want power for themselves. They funded individuals to primary neoliberal Dem candidates, weak incumbents. Get them out of the way, put their own people in, they take power, and then they extract power back out in the form of kickbacks of various sorts. With this, the Democrats are funding the other party. And the problem is that what we have not seen historically is that the outsider groups that are uprising, which is clearly what MAGA is doing across the board, lose, generally speaking. You're literally funding your replacements when you're doing this. I predict that the majority of the MAGA candidates that are standing for office will win. It doesn't matter whether they were surreptitiously funded by the DCCC or not. I understand the article. I actually echo the concern here. If I were a Democrat, and of course, clearly I'm not, and I was donating to the DNC, and they were bundling money, and some of my money ended up going to fund the fucking MAGA candidate in order to try to knock off a neocon incumbent, I think I'd be pretty pissed. The problem for the DCCC is that this is not yesteryear with the Justice Dems. This is not some surreptitious far-left race where there is no Republican really to run against that anyone cares about. This is a party funding its own opposition, thinking that if it funds the weaker candidate, supposedly, that it'll magically win. Oh boy, I can see this blowing up in their face. I'd be livid if I was a Democrat. Imagine you're a Republican and this happens. They're like, well, there's several Democrats that might run against our candidate. And we think that the socialist is weaker. We're literally going to give $1 million to a PAC to fund a socialist candidate. Yes, we know that you gave it to us to fund the Republican candidate, but we're actually going to prop up the primary opponent of the neo-lib because we think the neo-lib can probably win, but we don't think the far leftist can win. And then the far leftist ends up losing anyway, of course, in some cases. That would piss me off. Or they win and you've just radicalized the enemy party. Even if they lose, you still have created new radical voters. You have paid part of my money that I donated to you to do this. Can you imagine how endless the criticism would be if the Republican Party engaged in such behavior on any significant level? But instead, this has been reasonably front page news now for months, actually. And Jesus, I mean, it's beyond the pale in every possible way and manner. Think cross-platform, what do we got? We got almost 4,000 people watching cross-platform. Hello to you all. Cosette Gagny, I'm moving into a new apartment in New England and looking to grow some veggies indoors. Can you please recommend the best veggies to start? Fruiting veggies tend to do well indoors, not the root crops and stuff. You can have little kitchen greens. If you've got a little growing lamp set up, you can definitely grow some tomatoes. Herbs are always good, kitchen herbs. I would recommend getting just a couple of cheap lamps and having a bunch of kitchen herbs and then have a bunch of tomatoes in a window. It's always good. Dennis, I'm not trying to argue for replacement theories with you, by the way. Okay, point taken. That's fine. Stephen Nizek, in a world with the 2020 honkening, I'm afraid that people willing to honk might be willing to grassy knoll in 2024. It's possible. Then all hell breaks loose, I suppose. Hopefully, that's not going to happen. A drunk changeling. Didn't the German Communist Party try and do the same thing with the Nazis in the 30s? How did that work out for them? Yeah, I mean, the Nazis and the communists, both of which are far left, began to grow based on the center, the establishment being weak, and lashing out at both sides impotently, effectively. They weren't capable of solving economic issues. And what happened is that people perceived the Nazis, they're the traditionalists, the communists were more of the internationalists, and both sides would play up to the respective poles of politics. So the Nazis would say to the conservatives, hey, look, the communists are going to take over this country. Look, the establishment can't stop them. We can. We need your support. And people on the fringe of the conservative movement would join them. So then the Nazi party gets a lot bigger. The communists then go to the Democrats and they look over at the Nazis and say, look, there's 10 times more Nazis now. They're running roughshod. The establishment can't stop them. You need to join with us. Otherwise, you're going to be under NSDAP rule. And so they grew and they fed off of each other to the point where effectively the establishment at the end of the day basically chose a side and the rest was history. They never would have grown in the first place had the establishment reacted properly. Instead of a bunch of lamestream individuals within politics who had in many cases been there for a long period of time, being corrupt, doing little to nothing, and what they did do was ineffective, and trying to spy on the parties, which didn't work. Hitler initially, you'll remember, was literally hired as a spy and sent to the NSDAP meetings to spy on them by the establishment in Weimar Germany. And he got radicalized while he was there. What's the German government literally doing today to various groups within Germany? History is repeating itself, unfortunately. And Russia was involved. Hey, we're basically in the 30s right now. Can't we just have the roaring 20s first at least? Can we have like 5 or 6 years in the sun where we can just build Art Deco and listen to swing music? Can we have a little bit? Can us millennials please get a break before you start World War III? Boomers, please. Havercamp Harassment Chronicles. Forget the honkening. I want the Stixoning. And a follow-up. You are responsible for the Stixonization of America. I hope so. Everyone will soon be legally required to keep their spoon in their coffee at all times. Xavier, clank and spank. We went out to a restaurant earlier and I kept my spoon in my double espresso. I wonder why I'm so energetic right now. The Never, what do you think of running negative ads against the popular Dems in primaries? Negative, positive ad, both fine. Let's see. Oh yeah, we got to talk about this one. iCarly's Jeanette McCurdy was talking about things. Jeanette McCurdy is opening up about her childhood trauma. She's 30 now. She's a little bit younger than me. McCurdy revealed she was exploited when she was a child actor on Nickelodeon's iCarly and Sam and Cat. She says her overbearing mother and the television industry were both to blame as they failed to protect her, according to the New York Times. Feel very sorry for her. Imagine you go to Nickelodeon, like you're a teenage kid. And so you think of like Nick or Disney or something, and you think of family friendly, and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to be a childhood star, and this will be great, and I'm going to be partying with Mickey Mouse. And then you get there, and it's a bunch of sleazy old dudes that want to photograph you in bikinis. My whole childhood and adolescence were very exploited, McCurdy said. There were cases where people had the best intentions and maybe didn't know what they were doing, and also cases where they did. They knew exactly what they were doing. She talks about the creator of iCarly, which is presumably Dan Hamhands Schneider, because he was the creator of iCarly, and the show she's known for. She won't name him, but she calls the creator the person who encouraged her at a teenage level to drink and then pose mostly nude for photographs and stuff like that. These allegations have been going on, I think now, for 5 or 6 fucking years. Just to be clear, if you're a 4chan user like me, you've seen so many Dan Schneider threads in the wake of his legal accusations against certain claimants against him before he got forced out, by the way, at Nickelodeon a few years ago. I wonder why that fucking happened. Was it dead weight? Hey, you've stopped producing hit shows, and you keep putting your hands on the stars and the lesser shows you're making. We can't have that baggage anymore. Sorry, you're going to have to find somebody else to perv on. To be clear, for legal purposes, wink, wink, not alleging anything with Dan Schneider. But he was the creator of iCarly, and the creator, totally not him, apparently was doing the ham-handed thing. She pointed out that when her mother was present, she never interjected or instructed her daughter that this was the price of show business. Everyone wants what you have, she allegedly told her daughter. Many such cases. Yeah. Apparently, she had a controlling mother, and then the gist of her new book is mostly, I guess, about that, but that there were other people who sort of exploited that. So you've got a young, reasonably talented. I was obviously a little bit old for iCarly, so I've only seen clips, but, can act, is capable of actually acting, which is more than most Nickelodeon tween stars, by the way. Apparently getting, fucked around with by Ariana Grande or some shit like that. Sort of having a disappointing career, and these allegations have been around on 4chan forever. If you're using that site, you already knew about the McCurdy stuff and Dan Schneider. There have been so many goddamn threads about this. I mean, it's not even funny at some point. And I believe it, by the way. This is one of those Me Too allegations that actually makes sense. When we're talking about casting couch sort of child star, or not even child star, but starlets in general, and we're talking about some fat, unattractive, greasy, extremely rich dude who has popular shows, wanting to put his ham hands on someone saying, oh, yeah, you can get the starring role. Here, quick, drink this. Yeah, I got to get my camera. I'll be right back in 30 minutes. Just drink those drinks over there. It'll feel good. Yeah, I believe that. What the fuck was Weinstein doing? This is the real Me Too, by the way. We're talking about people holding 6- and 7-figure sums and potential award-winning shows and shit like that over the heads of people that in many cases are mentally very impressionable. You've got a mother who was overbearing, basically like the, what the fuck was her name? What was that? One little kid there, Honey Boo Boo or something like that. Her fat mom's probably dead by now. You get cases like that where some little kid or teenager is effectively, if not forced into show business, at the very least introduced into it and then encouraged to do things that really shouldn't be done by someone who's that young. And then you have people that take advantage of it. Well, it's simple. If the ability to take advantage of such a situation exists whatsoever, it's going to be taken advantage of by people who are inclined to do so. And Nickelodeon and Disney and all these other things provide a way in order for that to be done. And so perverts end up there and they produce shows and then you do perverted things. And there are people that still discount this. A little bit different from some random Me Too claim. Nickelodeon did not immediately respond to Fox News' digital request for content. I wonder why they didn't want to respond. Hey, she was offered $300,000 to literally never talk about her experience at Nickelodeon. When you're offering someone that much money, that's enough to live on for quite a few years, unless you're being very spendthrift. You've made millions anyway from iCarly and shit like that. You're getting a merch cut and stuff. It's going to last for a very long time. It's still talked about even by fucking Zoomers for some reason. You've got millions. You don't have to work again if you don't want to. If you're willing to live a middle-class existence, basically, you don't have to work again. You can just putter around and do whatever you want. You're willing to offer $300,000 to a person, and there wasn't something untoward that you wanted not talked about? I do not believe that to be the case. And when the creator was intimidating her and doing the ham hands, here, drink the fucking booze and let me get my Nikon thing, I'm going to assume that it probably has to do with the creator of the show she happened to actually be known for. I don't think that's exactly much of a logical leap now, is it? Interesting if there's a lawsuit involved here. Possibly. Kyle Miller. RCP generic ballot poll has Republican and Democrats tied. Your thoughts? Many such cases. There are also those that show the Republicans or the Democrats ahead. I believe the GOP still has a slight advantage overall in the aggregate, but it has narrowed, to be clear. This may be statistical noise. We'll wait a few weeks and we'll see if that holds true. Emperor Soft Turtle. We millennials can get a break when we stop supporting Marxists. Yes, absolutely. Joe Biden. Gas is going to be under $3 come August, and job growth is increasing. My re-election is looking bright. Yeah, right, bright. Bright! Yes, gas prices are down, which is very, very good. Unfortunately, they're mainly down because of shenanigans involving the draining of the strategic oil reserves and a gas holiday that will go the way of the dinosaur, I believe just right after midterms, which is probably totally coincidental. Miku 4X bot. Dan, she's a fighter, Schneider. Dan, get in the van, Schneider. Dan, likes him tighter, Schneider. Dan, the Rough Rider, Schneider. Dan, the meat grinder, Schneider. Oh boy, I have seen every possible permutation of this fucking meme for years. And the dude, like, I mean, how many chins does he have? His chin extends up into his cheeks. I think I could gain 200 pounds and I still would be have a lower BMI. At least we know he never raped anyone because, I mean, how can you find your dick with all the fat rolls? So, I mean, that part probably isn't a thing. Same with Weinstein. Apparently he had a micro penis, supposedly. So he never raped anyone. He just, I don't know, fingered him, I guess. OMG, it's Angry Gaming. iCarly had a lot of feet scenes. Like a lot. Yes, there are also threads regarding that where Schneider, or the main page of iCarly, was encouraging young fans to post pictures of their feet based on, I guess, scenes in that show. It's a little bit odd. And no parents ever complained about this, by the way. They'll complain about Alex Jones, but iCarly was perfectly fine. And this was years ago. This is like a decade ago that this was big. Think about how perverted it is now. And there are still people that put their head in the sand and don't want to question all of the weird shit that they are seeing on, well, it's not TV anymore because TV doesn't really exist. It's just basically a computer screen, but on demand and shows like that. The Grizzly, do you think the tide in the culture war is finally turning? How long do we have to put up with this utter insanity? I think it's beginning, but it takes a long time for such turnings to happen. Mr. Wonderful, day 6 in a row with 0 notification. YouTube sucks. You must be pissing off all the right people, Sticks. Yeah, but I can't complain about the reception. We do have 4,000 people watching live cross-platform, so I mean, I might be algorithmically held back, but it's not working too well. I think we have a super chat over on Rumble. SJ Whitney, if you step back and look at the big picture, you will see that everything the left has been doing is to drive stock futures in directions that make them billions. Open your eyes and ignore the misdirection. Yeah, I think that a lot of it is money related. It's not really related to Taiwan and stuff like that. Those are just secondary. Hair Juicer 3000, thanks for entertaining me at work. You've narrated the fabrication of tens of millions of dollars of heavy equipment. Interesting. Yeah, so Dan Schneider, there are some questions to be asked about that in the wake of McCurdy's new book. Those questions won't be asked by a lawyer, in all honesty, most likely, which is the sad part. I do believe she was exploited by the entertainment industry, as basically everyone else who I think works with certain people has been. It's funny because the people that say, well, oh my God, Harvey Weinstein basically tried to rape or, micro penis hump everyone he encountered that had a vagina. Are you going to apply that logic to other people, in which cases you have, at least some tangential evidence of perversion? Of course not. That would be a conspiracy theory. It's amazing how hindsight is always 20/20 on these things. Now, the Seattle Times posting, Herrera Butler, or Butler, as someone pointed out, in trouble as Kent gains in Washington's 3rd district. Newhouse advances in the 4th. Yes, Newhouse has won. He's one of the impeachers. And he had an advantage anyway, so it's not a huge surprise, although people were hoping that, I think it was Culp was running against him. So he's gone on. However, Butler, or Butler, is only about 250 votes ahead of Kent, Joe Kent, at this moment. Because of the trajectory of the day of votes, which will begin to be counted again on Monday, a lot of people are expecting that actually Butler loses. I think this would be good. It's another impeacher that is not in Congress anymore. And Joe Kent, I think, is viable. Again, there are various problems with literally all of these anti-impeacher candidates. Some of them had been, like Carrie Lake, for example, running for the gubernatorial slot in Arizona, had been legacy media, standard liberal in the past. I give a pass because I basically come from the same backdrop politically. I was a liberal too many years ago, and then the liberals started saying, oh, no, it's tough on crime is all right with us. Basically a la Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, wink, wink. Now the war is okay with us. Now Obama's in charge, so it's okay to drone people. And I just get tired of the hypocrisy and the bullshit. I'll probably end up having that happen over the next decade if the Republicans gain more ground, because they'll get more authoritarian too. And all of a sudden, instead of being anti-censorship and saying, hey, let's not go to war, we'll get another Iraq or something like that probably. So I'll be against them in the future. And then people can criticize me for being fickle, for changing my mind too much. And they'll say, well, he was always a commie at heart. Just look at his views on gay marriage or something like that. And it'll be very, very funny. And so that's a preemptive prediction about the political future of the next 10 years. I'm predicting the entirety of the second wave of the 20s. Unfortunately, I cannot predict flappers coming back. The Grizzly, I feel like I'm at the beginning of the Battle of Minas Tirith when the city of Minas Morgul sends up the beacon into the sky. Hopefully, we live to see the Tower of Sauron fall. That scene was so cool, it's almost like you're wishing that the orcs would win that particular battle. That was pretty great. Alex Bogey, Sticks, any advice for dealing with severe people with Trump derangement in public places like bars or pools? Ignore and leave or pretend to agree? I just ignore, but here in the Netherlands, nobody cares, to tell the truth. Kyle Miller, forgot to add, I think the strategic release of oil and Nancy's trip to Taiwan is helping the Dems. Yeah, they're definitely trying. I mean, they've lowered the oil price slightly. That helps with gas prices. It's beginning to kick in, although I believe there's a lull now in that reduction, so the gas prices won't fall, I think, that much further. They will go back up. We'll see about the timing. I think they've carefully timed it to try to make sure that the gas prices don't skyrocket back up by midterms. They've done this for strategic purposes. Good on them. I mean, as far as getting elected, it's definitely the right thing to do. Opinionated Junkie, do you grill? If so, propane or charcoal? I don't have a grill. I just use the fucking oven. Oh shit, one. Robert Barnes says 100% it's going to be Trump DeSantis. It is possible. I mean, they could choose him as his running mate. Next one, we have Zero Hedge here posting. Consumer credit surged in June, second largest monthly increase ever. Oh boy, that's not good. See, there's a problem. Normally, people are taking out credit lines. That means that they want the new dishwasher, they want, the car or something like that, and they're confident that they'll be able to pay it back. Under normal circumstances, if the economy is doing reasonably well, and I don't mean my Biden economy, it's exploding with growth, unemployment at 3.5%, low-wage jobs that don't even pay a decent enough salary to eat ramen, but we'll get past that. Normally, if the credit lines are increasing in number, and the economy is going well, you'd say, okay, people feel confident. They know that they can handle the debt. They're taking out some because they want to make a big purchase, and then they're paying it back at interest later on. The problem is that the reason that people are taking out so many loans, basically, which is what a credit card is, basically getting loaned money on a piece of plastic to buy doodads and doohickeys. The problem is that the reason they're doing that is they blew through their savings. Their savings are gone. Bidenomics and lockdownerism has exhausted the U.S. middle class. They're taking out credit lines because they have no other manner in which to buy basic necessities, none of which are going to contribute to long-term economic growth. It's Chinese bullshit. They're buying Campbell's soup with credit cards right now. Oh boy, is this going to blow up in our faces in the next couple of years. It's like if Trump wins in 24, he'll probably end up taking the blame for it when everything collapses around him, no matter how well he does with the economy. He'll probably end up with another multi-trillion-dollar bailout because of this. When people are taking out huge amounts of debt and they're not doing it for luxury goods because they feel confident and they're like, well, I just got a better job. I can afford the dishwasher. I don't have the money up front, but I expect to have it. So, it's okay. I'll just get a credit card, which is already a bad idea. By the way, I've never used a credit card in my life. Fuck credit. Not necessary in Europe, by the way, to the same extent as in the US. One of the things the Europeans do better, the credit score means a little bit less here in Europe. It matters if you have fucking money and good income. I think that works better. But the problem is that people aren't doing that. They're taking out the credit line to get groceries. They're saying, well, I hope that I can pay it back in a couple of years when this interest comes ripe and stuff. I'm hoping that the Bidenomic crisis is over. This is terrible. This is the worst possible thing. If anything, the government should be talking to these agencies and saying, look, raise your standards or something so these people aren't taking out credit. We would even prefer fucking bread lines to this. If they were responsible, they would admit to their wrongdoing with regards to the economy, and they would do that. But they're not going to do that. That would throttle growth. As long as people keep buying their groceries and occasionally something else, they go to the movies, pay like 30 fucking bucks for a ticket to see something shitty and woke anyway, then the economy keeps limping along. To be clear, this is not a strong economy. What's happened is that many more people now, prices are pacing ahead of wages. That's number one. You still have low labor force participation, number two. It doesn't matter if the unemployment rate's low, if labor force participation is several points below where it should be. The real unemployment rate is like 5.5, 6%. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not legendarily low and everything's fine. You have hyperinflation. You have extremely low business and consumer confidence. Yet people take out credit lines. If the consumers and the businesses don't have confidence, if everyone thinks the economy is terrible, and even the legacy media admits to this, why are they taking out credit lines? Why on earth would any reasonable person take out thousands of dollars of credit at a time when they're saying, hey, the economy is basically on the edge of collapse and my wages are depreciating according to the cost of goods? They're not doing it to buy luxury goods. They're not doing it to go to Disneyland. They're not going it because their kid begged them for the miniature EV that they can ride around the backyard with. They're not doing it for that. They're doing it to buy lentils. They're doing it to buy a can of pickles. It's a sign of the weakness of the U.S. economy that this is happening. Second largest monthly increase on record. Boy, oh boy, that's not good. Look at this fucking chart, by the way. Most of the biggest increases have been recently. It's just slightly bigger than what month was it? It was earlier this year. I think it was in May, actually. So most of them have been fairly recently. That's not good, dude. People are really going to regret, by the way, taking out that credit. I would advise you, no matter how bad things are, you should skip meals before you get a credit card right now. Just trust me. That is, by the way, financial advice. I'm legally entitled to tell you not to get into a bunch of debt right now. I think you'll be happy with the outcome if you don't. The Chickener, the Sandy Hook parents are grifters. I'm actually going to address that in a moment. I'll address the parents that are suing Alex Jones. Some of them have a legit claim. Some of them do not. We're going to parse it apart and do what no other commentator appears to be doing. John Hendy, you've talked about how you've de-radicalized leftists before. Do they tend to have underlying traumas that help to cause them to drift that way? In some cases, but then people on the right can have the same problem. Hell, a person goes full on ANCAP and says, fuck the whole world. Sometimes there's trauma there. In other cases, it has to do with upbringing, or in some cases, what I would call misinterpreting, but rather more broadly interpreting philosophical and political dogma. Opinionated junkie, physical media is dying. Streaming is another way of control. They can remove TV shows and movies. I like physical media and have ways of putting it on PC. Good idea. Back up everything locally and not just on your fucking computer, because remember, they will soon, this is a prediction, in the next 5 to 10 years, they will begin changing the end user license agreements to be able to go through your material automatically with algorithms and AI and redact things that are detected as copyright protected, detected as hateful, etc., etc. So don't store your books locally. They will be, trust me, you'll wake up and you'll find your files have been deleted because your computer was connected to a cloud. Not even connected to a cloud, just your computer. It happened to be connected to the internet. Store it locally. Flash drives and tape drives and shit like that. Stored on a disk. Hair Juicer 3000. Credit boggles my mind. Paid off my car and my score dropped. When my mortgage matures, I'll have 0 credit history. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what my credit is because I'm not going to bother checking it. I figure I want to buy everything in cash when I can. When I buy land, I'm just going to show up with a wad of money. If I get my car fixed, I'm going to pay with it in cash. It's almost as good as money, US dollars. Trikaria Official, I love your content. Hello from North Carolina. Well, hello. Good climate there. You can deal with the humidity. Yeah, we are over 4,000 live watching right now, but we only have one story left. We got to talk about Alex Jones. And we'll link KT Hamilton. This is a shit poster who's trying to do the typical leftoid thing of, I am big and strong. It's sort of what Kaczynski talked about with liberals, that they are physically, they are inferior. They tend to be weak mentally and physically. And so they have these weird, almost sexual desires to see people stomped into the ground. They want to feel like they're participating mob-like by getting like a cop to do it or a soldier or something. And so we have this screed here, and you can go ahead and dogpile if you happen to be on Twitter to the 4,000 people watching. Go have fun. We'll see how long it takes for KT Hamilton to block me on the platform as every other fucking leftoid does when they're faced with the wrath of Clankdom. Full accountability for the far right is coming. This Alex Jones verdict is just the beginning. Oh, well, you're saying the silent part out loud. Good on you for being honest, by the way. Dominion suing Fox. January 6th, the House of Cards is slowly crashing down. Prosecuting criminals has to be a slow water type process. Can I ask one thing? We'll focus just on Alex Jones for a moment. One of the things that the plaintiffs in the case talked about was the fact that Alex Jones supposedly was worth something like $250 million. Now, this is clearly not true, but we'll go with it. Plaintiffs' lawyers claimed that. And so they said, well, we're asking for so much money because we want him to be effectively permanently deplatformed. We want to take his bullhorn away. If he's worth $240+ million, even if you had gotten 100% of your initial verdict, he would still be worth over $100 million. So how can this possibly be the ethos behind it? This poor individual actually believes the grift of some of the individuals doing the legal fair thing with Alex Jones. This was for a payday. However, and people need to understand this, not all of the people that were suing Alex Jones are doing so in bad faith. The amount is excessive. The reasoning behind it, especially for the amount, is excessive and wrong. Some of the parents there were actively called by Alex Jones. This was an objective claim, and here's where he is legally wrong and legally culpable. I don't think to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, but he did defame people. He claimed objectively that some of these individuals were crisis actors. That is, he claimed that they were literally funded to pretend to be aggrieved parents. And they could show, hey, my kid literally died. I can prove that what he said was incorrect. I can prove that it was malicious. I've gotten death threats, so I can prove material loss or pain and suffering. And therefore, they went forward with the case. I don't deny that those cases should have gone forward. What I do deny is this. Some of the cases rely upon the defamation of the dead. Well, who cares? They're dead. It doesn't matter if you have an emotional knee-jerk reaction with regards to who was killed. It doesn't matter. Number two, the idea that he caused death threats and things of that nature. Only when paired with objective defamation would that make sense. If there was no objective defamation, no named party, etc., it shouldn't go forward anyway. For instance, if I put out a video and I say viperous, evil things about somebody, and they get death threats, it doesn't mean that I caused the death threats to be issued. It might have been encouraged by what I said, but that's up to someone else's third-party interpretation. And third, the amount. The idea of making Alex Jones pay $45 million for defamation doesn't make sense. How much did Kyle Sandman get, for instance, suing Bloomberg, CNN, etc.? He's gotten several settlements. I think some cases are ongoing. I hazard a guess it wasn't $45 million. Now, how would those damages be different? He's a young kid himself at the time, 17, getting called a Nazi and racist and all these things, hazarding his ability to get an education, et cetera, et cetera. How would that not be worser? We'll use a Bushism here. How would that not be worse than Alex Jones saying, hey, this person's a crisis actor, they get a couple of angry emails? How would it not be worse? And so what's the differential in terms of the money? Then you have the admission by the plaintiffs that the entire point is not even about defamation. It's not even about an objective false claim or anything like that. It's to literally destroy Alex Jones' ability to speak, a literal attempt to disarm him from the First Amendment. Even if you believe he's far right, he's extreme, he's reprehensible, he's evil, he's everything wrong in the world, just like CNN told you years ago when he was first dogpiled and deplatformed from every meaningful form of revenue on mainline sites. This, by the way, was not coincidentally timed. Even them, if you think he's totally reprehensible, if he's not in jail, that is, this is a civil case, he still has the right to speak. They've got, yeah, exactly, ZB Gator. Apparently, they added punitive damages also, some crazy amount like 150 million. No, the punitive damages are the 45. There were a couple of million in total before. The punitive is in the tens of millions range. It's ridiculous. There's no reason that any person should be paying that much in punitive damages for what is effectively hyperbolic infotainment to begin with. There was defamation there. Kids were killed at Sandy Hook. Yes, I know some people will disagree, but I don't give a shit. And parents, some of them, were explicitly called by Alex Jones crisis actors. They were defamed. Well, then it's perfectly fine to give a legal suit. Why then this amount of punitive damages, including claims that don't involve any objective defamation, is what I want to know. It should have been 1/10 this. It should have been a few $1 million. It's fine. Alex Jones is a millionaire. You want to sue him for several $1 million? That makes sense. You tried to get $150 million or some crazy amount out of it. And then the judge was openly hostile to Jones the entire time. His legal case fell apart in part because his lawyers were incompetent. The entire thing was a kangaroo court, effectively. So I think it's very, very, it's somewhat upsetting as well that supposedly liberal individuals are saying, well, oh, Alex Jones just got sued. Oh, good, he's been silenced, which is not actually going to happen, but they're hoping that he'll remain silent. He'll still be there, trust me, in the settlement. He'll be able to make the payments. Supposedly he's worth 200+ million, right, liberals? Well, then he'll be able to pay it off out of hand. He'll just sell a couple of cars or something, right? That won't happen, but he'll be able to deal with it and continue with his life. But now you're saying, oh, well, this is a great precedent. Now we can do this to other people. Can I ask, what would happen to some of the leftoid commentators out there who have openly defamed individuals on the right? Would they be held to the same standards? I do seem to remember that I was name dropped alongside Alex Jones at one point by BuzzFeed and at another point by the Wall Street Journal, insinuating that I was far right. So if I suffer any material damage in the future, can I point to that and sue them for like $100 million? I can prove material damage. I can ascribe it to them. I can prove that I'm not actually an extremist or violent in any way. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should get my piggy bank payday out of it. 87 Sparky, what about storing on a USB? USBs are fine. I use them for storage and usage constantly. Although there are other methods to store long-term longer. Jim Morrison, Don versus Ron is a win-win. Best Dems have is Tulsi. I don't think Gabbard will run. Michael Putnam, Liz is switching to Democrat. Alex will return. Trump Ultra MAGA 47. Peace. Oh, Liz Cheney intends to become a Democrat. That'd be funny if she did that. You'd still lose, but. So yeah, as far as Jones goes, it is a monkey trial, basically. MD, any thoughts on Rekieta's suspension on YouTube? I was not aware that Rekieta Law was suspended on YouTube. I will have to look into that, actually. I proactively oppose everyone who has every suspension and ban cross-platform for non-criminal purposes. Unless somebody is spamming or harassing someone or posting like illicit material or something like that, I think they should be allowed to speak their minds. These platforms used to believe in that and even fought the US government on that token for many years before deciding to sell out. It'll be a cold day in hell before they stop the clankers, though. They can fuck themselves. And they will be made to, by the way. They'll go to hell someday. It's where they deserve. By the way, no, that's not a criminal threat. That's just a statement that everyone is ultimately mortal. And most of these people seem to be Judeo-Christians, so. Tag Nabbit 007. The word says the followers of the Messiah are the last tribes of Israel. I don't give a fucking goddamn shit what the Bible says, just to be clear. There are plenty of people who want me to convert to Judeo-Christianity, and I keep saying no thank you. I respect your right to believe in your God the way that you do and all of your other spiritual beliefs, but I mean, come on. Don't you think at some point it's a lost cause to try to convert me? Miku4X Spot, what do you think of the Dark Brandon shilling? Yes, well, the Dark Biden thing is actually like a year old at this point. They took that up because of the Dark MAGA thing. They just tried to appropriate it. It's cringe as fuck. It's got a bunch of lame-ass, like, third-rate cartoons. It's hilarious, though. I mean, to the 10 people that still support Joe Biden, it's funny. Anyway, I think that I'm going to go offline now. Over 4,000 people, almost 4,200 watching at peak. Getting lots and lots of good engagement here. Go through the news. We got Taiwan and Alex Jones and all this shit. Most of which is literal shit. I mean, just look at Nancy Pelosi. At this point, her face is sagging so much, I'm thinking, what did she eat for her last meal? Was it botulism toxin? Who even knows? And so I will go live probably tomorrow. Roughly similar time. I'm trying to keep it roughly on schedule. I have problems with that. When you've got a child, you have to change a diaper. You end up 20 minutes late. To go to the store, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing the best that I can. But at least I'm streaming every single day. That's something, isn't it? That's about all. Peace out.